Hi, I'm Zhao. I'm a first-year PhD candidate from Eindhoven University of Technology. Thank you very much for having me here today, and thank you, my promoter, Professor Theo Arenze, Pauline Vandenberg, and Yulia Osakina for your support. The topic of my presentation today is managing residents' preferences regarding spatial planning and design of neighborhood parks, using a virtual reality-based stadia trials experiment. I'm gonna introduce you my research by 4 parts. Firstly, the motivation, then a briefly introduction of my project, and then some detail about VR experiment setup, and finally the questionnaire design. So definition first. Public space are all places publicly owned or of public use, accessible and enjoyable by all for free and without a perfect motive. We focus on parks and streets, which are typically considered public space in this research. So why we choose public space as the research object? Firstly, it plays an important role in sustainable city. And previous researchers also showed for individual user, public green space has an important influence on people's physical and mental health, and even for the property values. In Europe, more than 75% of population now live in urban area. Public space covers sometimes over 50% of the total area of our cities, according to the UN Population Division. More and more municipalities today, for example, our city Eindhoven, are seeking for greener city center. And we also saw great opportunity in using VR to better measure residents' preferences regarding neighborhood public space and design attributes. The result of existing researchers indicated that virtual reality provided higher public engagement and more vivid memories than viewing the designs on non-immersive displays. It also allows researchers to achieve a controllable and vivid virtual environment, which yield greater external validity in preference measurement. The study I introduced you today is a part of a larger research, and the project goal of the whole research is to achieve better planning and design of neighborhood green space. And today's introduction is mainly about the step 2, how to modeling and test residents' preferences of selected public space attributes using virtual reality-based static trials experiment. Imagine there's a public space regeneration project in your city. Different designs vary in greening intervention, trees, the amount of open space, and water and even other spatial elements would be put forward to the government and to the municipality to choose. But what kind of nature-based solutions do public prefer? And how can urban regeneration project better combine resident spatial preferences? To find an answer, we use technique of static tracks experiment. In this technique, individuals are presented a choice task where they are asked to indicate their preferences among different choices. The options are hypothetical and described in terms of a set of attributes. Based on a statistical design, the separate utility effects of the attributes can be identified through statistical analysis. Different from the traditional state trials experiment, virtual reality can virtualize the choice set, in other words, the hypothetical public spaces, and allow users to work immersed in the environment. This short video shows you the physical setup of the virtual reality experiment. And for the experiment, we will firstly transfer the verbal alternatives into 3D models using SketchUp and Unreal Engine 4. And to determine the added value of using immersive environment, the same experiment will also be conducted through an online survey using interactive first-person videos. Accurate measurements of residents' green spaces preferences such as the key spatial determinants and the influential social demographic characteristic and the residents' main motivations to use those green spaces will be obtained from this experiment. Our target respondent, because our location, the Eindhoven in the Netherlands, so we will choose the resident in our city as the target respondent. This image shows the design of the hypothetical public space. It is an area with 2 blocks divided by streets. Each block has a side length of 100 meters, based on the Dutch design guidelines and the common scale of Dutch cities. The area of the street block includes 2 types of public green space: streets and parks. The basic unit could represent a daily accessible area for local residents and also feasible to transfer into a virtual reality experiment. And this table shows you the attributes we've included in the previous shown virtual environment, based on a literature review and also some suggestions from Eindhoven municipality. Each of the 7 attributes has 2 levels. Using a fractional fractal design, 8 profiles, varied in attributes levels, have been created. For each choice task, the respondents will be asked to choose their preferred public space from 2 randomly picked profiles. And in this image, you can see the spatial allocation of 7 attributes. The first 3 attributes are related to the park. The attribute 4 and 5 are factors of the street greening, and the last 2 are related to surrounding buildings. Now I will give you some examples of the profiles of the different attribute levels in virtual environment. We can say the surface of public green space have 2 levels, pavement and grass. And the trees along the street also have 2 levels, now trees and trees on 2 sides. The vertical greening attribute also has 2 levels, now and yes. And same as the water have 2 levels. And here's an example of the profiles. In other words, the combination of different attribute levels. In this picture, it is the profile with 1,500 square meters of open space. And the surface of the public green space is grass, and also have water inside the park. And for street, there are some grass along the street, and also 2 sides of trees along the street. As for buildings, there's some vertical greening on the buildings facades. And the average number of the building stories in this profile is 3, is a level 0. The procedure of a single respondent in the experiment has 5 steps. Firstly, the respondent will start from a welcome interface with some brief instructions. Two modes of operation are available. For an online experiment, the keyboard can be used to control movement, to control the direction you work with the first-person perspective. And for the VR lab experiment, a VR treadmill and a headset will be used. Secondly, the respondent will roam in the first profile within 60 seconds. The profile is randomly selected, and then he or she will be transferred to the second randomly selected profile. After that, a series of stated preference questions will be asked regarding different motivations of uses. Here we can show example of the questions. How satisfied are you with the public space as a place for social interaction? And the respondent will complete a 5-level Likert scale so that we could obtain discrete choice data. And now I'm going to show you a video for the whole process, which will help you to get the idea directly. Let's start. You can see this is the start interface of the experiment. By standing on the white button, the respondent will be transferred to the first randomly selected profile. He or she could explore the environment freely. This is a park area, and on the left hand there is a street. At the end of the street, we can see an instruction board. And by standing on the white button again, he or she will be transferred to the second profile, which is also randomly selected. You can tell that there is some difference in the environment. For example, in this profile, there's now a tree along the street. Then by standing on the red button, the experiment will quit, and the respondent will be asked some stated preference questions. And except the spatial attributes we measured in the VR experiment I've just showed you, previous studies have also indicated other factors could influence individual spatial preferences. So a questionnaire was developed to collect this part of data. The questionnaire consists of 4 sections. The first is some questions about social demographic characteristics. For example, the age, gender, income, self-perceived health of the respondent. And the second part is some information about characteristic of respondent's neighborhood. For example, the respondent will be asked, how long is the distance from the nearest public space to your home? And the section 3 is about public space usage. There includes some questions, for example, how often do you visit the green space closest to your home, and how long do you visit the park each time? And the last section is what I've introduced to you before, the state preferences experiment of public spaces. And this part will start after the respondent exploring the VR environment. So that is all of my presentation today. Thank you so much for your time, for your attention. And if you have any questions, please do contact me through my email.